Welcome to r/Reddit Revenge. This is a story of someone getting back at someone with revenge after being wronged. Thank you friends for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. Misconfigure your system so that it regularly bothers me, and I'll do my diest to make it a personal problem for the highest ranking a-hole I can find. The second story. Boss screws me over and tries to extort me. I start a dumpster fire. The third story. Neighbor decided to be at enmity and compete with me. Okay, let's play these games. The first story is calls in the middle of the night. I was reminded of this by a recent post. Back in the late 90s when house phones were still a thing, our phone kept ringing in the middle of the night after we moved to a new house and had to get a new telephone number. Unfortunately, I didn't have caller ID. This went on for months. I was always too sleepy and incoherent to ask for an explanation before the calling party hung up. Finally, one night there were 2 calls, and I was still awake for the second call, so I answered in a business-like fashion, rather than with a sleepy hello. The person on the other end was in a hurry to get in touch with someone other than me, but at least when I said, "You have to tell me why people keep calling," they said it's in the main directory before they hung up. Main directory? There was a large employer near me, Freescale Semiconductor. It used to be part of Motorola and now it's part of NXP, but then it was a private company. So I found their main number, dialed it, and listened to the nighttime recording. It was a long list. For blah blah blah, call XXXYYYY. For blah blippity boo, call ZZZABCD. For the MOS 11 fab main floor, call Zeven's home number and wake his A up. Or something like that. Anyway, it was now 3:30 a.m., and I was wide awake. This was during that brief moment when the web, home phones, and phone books coexisted. So I got on the web, found out the name of the CEO of Freescale, found him in the phone book, got on the phone and called and woke his A up. After I explained the situation, he mumbled something like, "Couldn't you call Freescale Security and have them fix it?" Well, I'm sure all of your wonderful employees who ever called me took it upon themselves to try to do that immediately after they realized that an error in your directory was causing them to wake up random strangers. It seems unlikely your security would listen to me if they won't even listen to your own people. Well, could you call my office in the morning? Sure, what's the number? So I chatted with his secretary a few hours later, and she said she'd fix it. But of course that night I tested it again and was still broken. So I called his secretary back the next morning, and factually explained that it wasn't fixed yet, and that every single time I got called in the middle of the night, her boss would as well. The bee was dumb enough to ask, "Why on earth would you do that?" But smart enough to realize that she'd been adequately warned that her name would probably come up in any subsequent 3 a.m. conversation between me and her boss, and resourceful enough to get it fixed post-haste. Edit. I just remembered it was MOS 11, not Fab 25, which was AMD's Fab, so I changed that above. Someone below asked why people were calling in the middle of the night. It was a 24-hour operation, so people were probably responding to pages and dealing with emergencies to keep things chugging along, which is why they were always too busy to talk to me when they got a wrong number. She understood very quickly what needed to be done, and complied with your request. Well done, OP. I would like to add that the CEO was surprisingly accommodating. My grandparents, parents, and all my aunts and uncles, and even some of my cousins still have home phones. I know they're not as common now, but have we really gotten to the point where people don't know what they are or anything like that? I used to be able to talk to my friend for hours on the phone. Now we have instant messengers, but I still remember the home phones with warmth in my heart. A friend had a number that was 1 digit different from the Hut of Pizzas. At first he tried to explain that they called a different number. Then he stopped telling the idiots they were calling the wrong number. He found that it was easier to just take their order. The second story is, do not want me to work my notice? Okay, I will not work during my notice. I was working in an organization that was super toxic, so much so that we were a revolving door. Most employees stayed only for a few months. To counter this, our management put a 3 months notice into everyone's contract, including the existing employees. It's not strictly illegal where this happened, but very unusual. I believe the idea behind that was to make it harder for the employees to find a job outside, as potential employers didn't usually want to wait for 3 months. However, this didn't work, as most people simply quit and waited for a month or 2 before starting their job hunt. I was there for almost 4 years. I needed the money, so I put up with whatever abusive SH was thrown at me. My boss was a guy we'll call Vince, not actual name. Now, Vince was not particularly good, but he sometimes respected the fact that I was the most tenured grunt in this organization. Do note that after about 2 years, I was doing a lot of additional work in addition to my official responsibilities, primarily because I was the only one who knew how to do those. Everyone else had already left. This will become important later. Enter Rajesh, also not actual name. Rajesh was poached from a somewhat infamous company and was literally flown in from a different continent. He was brought in to strategically improve our division. This was quite strange given that our division generated most profits. Within months, Rajesh made the environment even more toxic. He pulled Vince's team under him and got Vince fired, and he actively encouraged us grunts to spy on each other. Rajesh also had it out for me from day one. Until today, I don't know why. He started making my life much harder than the others. This culminated in him taking me aside and telling me that I was not pulling my weight. Now, at this point, I was doing quite well in the organization. Plus, I've been doing a lot of additional work critical to our business, since only I knew certain systems and processes. See high attrition above. So I was quite angry. I started looking out. I wasn't still brave enough to quit and start looking. Fortunately, I was able to find a job that was willing to wait the 3 months. So it was my turn to take Rajesh aside and tell him I quit. Boy, Rajesh was peeved. He went from denial, "You can't quit," to negotiation. "What if I give you a raise at the end of the year?" Before acceptance. Thus, I was serving my notice and working away like an honest bee. My usual work plus the additional work. At this point, I was called in by HR and told that Rajesh wanted me gone. The insane part was that they wanted me to pay the company for the 2.5 month shortfall in notice. I obviously refused, then went back and checked the contract. Turns out that a notice of less than 3 months could only happen through mutual consent, and the initiating party, company if they wanted me gone sooner, or me if I wanted to leave earlier, had to compensate the other party for the shortfall. The next day, I stopped doing almost all of my work. I logged in and out my hours and did jack SH. I stopped doing any additional work I have been doing, and started taking it really slow on my primary job responsibilities. Since no one else understood the details of what I did, I knew it would be very hard for Rajesh or HR to prove that I was doing any of this on purpose. Then I sat back with my popcorn. Soon there was a complete meltdown all around. Rajesh would pull me into meetings and scream and try to bully me, and I would say nothing but smirk to his face. Next, they tried to have someone else learn the additional work I used to do from me, so that they could do what I did. Remember I said earlier how I was the only one who knew some of the old systems and processes? Well, now I claimed I didn't really remember any of them, so obviously there could be no handover. Rajesh could do nothing as none of this had been my responsibility or part of my contract, since the leadership had been only too happy to see me do this for free. Soon my place turned into a dumpster fire. The HR/Rajesh smartened up and offered to buy out my notice if I cooperated and helped transition my work. I refused. Then to twist the knife further, I started having meetings with fellow grunts. Remember, everyone was always a newbie, and encouraging them to leave as well. Indirectly, nothing that could implicate me. HR tried to get me to leave twice more, but I ended up serving the full 3 months. Remember the mutual consent part? Edit. Since a lot of people asked, the company's still around. They started outsourcing a lot of our work to Asia, specifically the country Rajesh was originally from, where I believe the labor laws are much less stringent, and employees are much more willing to put up with a toxic work environment. Rajesh is also doing very well for himself. He's now moved to yet another country, one a lot of Redditors are from, and was with an employer that employs an F-ton of people. I suspect some of you reading this have or will come in contact directly or indirectly with him. My condolences. This dude played stupid games and got stupid awards. Never mess with an employee who knows most of what you need to keep your company running smoothly, because at one point that employee will leave you and you'll be in big trouble. I will never understand how people like that can stay on the job. The moment HR told you that Rajesh wanted you to leave early, and you checked the contract, that would be your opportunity to accept their offer, the mutual agreement piece, at which point they would need to pay you for the remainder of those 3 months. That way, not only would there have been a dumpster fire, but you would have gotten paid vacation time, or could have started another job earlier. But your option isn't bad either. Now they can't find and train an employee like you, and even if they could, it would take a long time, and the company could lose money because of it. The last story is, talk to me like a child. I'll outbake you at every turn. So back in March, I made plans to visit my boyfriend, who I'll call R, all the way across the country. Made it out there like a week before SH hit the fan, and basically been here ever since due to work shutting down and my university going online. Right now he has 3 roommates, one single guy and a male-female couple, T and E. I was only supposed to be here a few weeks, but it's now been 5 months and for a while everything was going smoothly. Anyway, E is very shy and anxious, like jumps when you round a corner anxious. I've tried socializing with her and being polite, but she sticks by T's side constantly and avoids everyone else, which is fine. I have anxiety too, I get it. However, if there was something she wanted R and I to change or do, she would never bring it up. Twice now she's written us long notes instead, detailing everything that we've done that's annoyed her. Stuff like our TV being a bit too loud, a bit of egg on the outside of the pan that the dishwasher didn't quite get, or me cling wrapping cookies on a plate instead of in a Tupperware. Small inconsequential stuff that we would have been happy to take care of or adjust to keep the peace. She once disclosed to me that she had anger issues, and the notes definitely reflected that, filled with cursing and declarations that we were disrespecting her by throwing away moldy bread that she and T left in the pantry for weeks. I wanted to say something, but my boyfriend is very non-confrontational, so we left it alone, other than a general reread your note and we'll do better statement. I told her since she and I are home most often, that she could absolutely come to me and I didn't want any animosity. Well, she never did, and we got another long note in the same vein as the other one, only the complaints are even pettier, like drops of water not wiped off of the stove, or us using the extra dish towel to wipe food off, despite us washing it regularly. I was livid, because not only did she not talk to us like adults, she also stated that she tried to give us a taste of our own medicine. We've no clue what she tried, but we didn't notice it. Now she cooks a lot, cooks for T basically every night and bakes occasionally, and I decided that whatever she cooked I would too. She tried making cornbread that turned out too dense and floury. I made cornbread that was perfectly moist. She made noodles with tofu. I made tofu and rice. It's worth noting that my boyfriend told me once that T complained about E being terrible at cooking. Well, I've cooked since my early teens as a coping mechanism for depression. So I knew she was bothered when I wrote cheerful little "feel free to try my ex on the microwave" notes on the fridge. Cookies with homemade frosting, fresh bread, cakes, chili, pies, cobblers, syrups, roasts, enchiladas, and tons of other dishes that I know she can't make. Since that, she's ignored me every time I've said anything to her, and leaves common areas as soon as possible when I'm there. We're only in this apartment for a bit more, but there have been no more hostile notes since I started showing her up. I think I'll keep leaving my cheerful ones though. People seem to be enjoying the baked goods. Edit. Just some clarifying points, because there have been some questions in the replies. TR and Single Guy are only in this apartment for about 7 months total. E and I both came out here around the same time for our BFs. She planned on staying the whole time. I was gonna stay a few weeks, but then Corona happened, which everyone was fine with. She and I both don't have jobs. The rent is split to make up for us being here, but our boyfriends are helping us out. I took on some freelance jobs to try and contribute, and I'm getting unemployment since Corona shut my job down. E never had a job. I live with my grandparents and a high-risk cousin, so when I flew out and things hit the fan, it was just safer for me to stay here. R is waiting to find out where he's being sent next, and we're hoping it's in the same state I live in, so we can drive out there and not risk a whole plane ride. Revenge is best served cold, or hot, or sweet, or sour, or... I like that revenge because you don't do anything harmful, but you still feel satisfied with how it works out. I had roommates like that. They were the worst. But on the other hand, you really are in this house for the long haul. You should address the housing issue. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button.